Today we're going to design a sign. Stay right where you are. Season's greetings and welcome back to This Printed Thing. My name is Mike and my wife asked me to design something that she can give to someone else as a Christmas present, specifically a sign. Now, in my religion, we have a saying, think celestial. So obviously we believe in God, we believe in a higher power, and this saying tells people to think higher thoughts, think celestial. So my wife wants me to design a sign that says think celestial with a graphic on it, but this is going to be a 3D printed sign. So let's get started. This video is sponsored by PCBWay. PCBWay is your one-stop shop for basic or advanced PCB assembly and prototyping. They have a long list of products and services, including, but not limited to, CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, injection molding, and yes, even 3D printing. Step up your prototyping with parts and PCBs from PCBWay. That's PCBWay. PCB prototype the easy way. Now back to the show. So we're jumping into Shapr3D here, and this is on my iPad because I love the use of the pencil on my iPad in Shapr3D. Now this sign is going to be printed on the Bambu X1-Carbon, and I know that Bambu recently launched its Maker World, and it has a new tool in Maker World for making signs, but I like a little more versatility in my sign making, so I'm using Shapr3D. Now, if you don't know what Shapr3D is an application a lot like Fusion 360 where you can do CAD for pretty much anything. Just it's a little bit more affordable and it's a lot easier to use in my opinion. So let's get started. So this sign is going to be, here, we're gonna make it kind of big-ish. So the Bambu X1-Carbon has a 256 by 256 X and Y print bed. I'm gonna make this sign 200 millimeters high, and we're actually gonna go big. We're gonna go 400 millimeters long. So this sign is gonna be printed in pieces. And here we go. And then close it off. There, so we have the basic part of the backing of the sign. We're going to be adding a graphic. It'll be a sun with rays of light coming off the top of it, and it's going to be at the top here. So what I want to do, I'm going to go from my right corner here, just so that I have another point of reference. I'm going to draw a 50 millimeter line back towards the center. Do the same thing here. So now I can just draw a circle. There. So now this is really going to be the basic shape of the sign. And so I'm going to tap that. Now we can tap this up and down arrow and make it 10 millimeters or 1 centimeter thick. Now, nothing is going to be going all the way to the border of the sign. I'd like to keep things about 1 centimeter away from the border, so I'm going to tap the border, and we're going to come over here to the left side and select offset edge. So we'll go here, we'll do 10 millimeters or 1 centimeter. So we're not going to have anything go past that line as far as up towards the border, because we're going to have our sun and it's going to radiate light out the top of it, and those rays are going to stay about 1 centimeter from the border. Now, to be certain that this line doesn't move, let's lock it in place. So I'm going to select it. We're going to lock it down at the bottom right. All right, so now we're gonna make the top of our sun. We're gonna do another offset image from this line here. So this time we're gonna have to kind of search for the tool. So more, offset edge. Let's go about, yeah, let's say about 30 millimeters. And if we look, this point right here is going to be, if this circle were drawn all the way around, that would be the center of the circle. So let's make a line from here. Do the same thing over on this side. So we've gotten to this point. What we want to do is we want to take this line and we're going to copy it all the way around the top of the sun. So we're going to go, with this line selected, we're going to go more, pattern, and we're going to make 50 copies of it. So we're gonna rotate this line around, and it's gonna make copies for us, but we need to take this anchor here and we need to move it to the center. That way, as we turn it, it's gonna turn and make copies all the way around, and it's gonna use that as an anchor. You'll see. So we're going to go like this. Now this is not going all the way, or it's going too far. So we're gonna come here and we kind of have to guess at this. It's gonna be like 134.2-ish. Yeah, see, we're close enough. We're not gonna be able to get it exact without doing some heavy math. And when we print this to the naked eye, you know, somebody, when it's on the wall, is not going to be able to see that we didn't get it all the way perfect. So now we're going to choose our rays that we're going to raise. That sounds weird, but we're going to take these rays. We're going to make rays of light, and we're going to choose which ones to raise, because what we're going to do, like this, is going to be raised 5 millimeters. That's our sun. I did that by tapping this up and down arrow here, and I chose 5 millimeters. So I'm gonna go now and make these rays extrude upward, and I'm gonna leave 3 spaces between them. You'll see why. So I've selected all the rays I'm going to extrude upward. So now I'm going to select this arrow here and extrude them up 5 millimeters. There you go. Now the reason I left 3 spaces is because I actually want to do something in here where I make a line. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. I just want to make a line. Make a line, and do this on every center space. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm going to choose all of these spaces here. Oops, I didn't mean to choose a line. Just tap it and it unselects it. Now I'm going to extrude those up 5 millimeters. So now we have our happy little sun with lots of rays of light coming off of it. So if you remember this little section here where we couldn't bring this line all the way to this line, what we probably should do is go ahead and extrude this piece as well. Because again, nobody's going to be able to see it. Nobody's going to be able to see that we were off by a fraction of a millimeter. So we'll bring this up 5 millimeters And now it looks pretty much exact all the way around. So one thing I like to do with my hard edges is I like to soften them. I like to give them what's called a fillet, where it kind of rounds the edge. So what we got to do is select all of our top edges. And this can take a minute, and you want to take your time because you don't want to select something that isn't an edge. I wish there was a way to just select the top edge all the way around. I can see why there isn't from a programming standpoint, but still. Shapr3D, if you're listening, if you can figure out a way, that would be hot. So I got this edge selected all the way around the top of our sun. Now, to create a fillet, I can do one of two things. I can grab this little arrow here and pull it out, or I can just tap the arrow, and I know what I want already. I want a 1 millimeter fillet all the way around. There. Kind of softens our edge a little bit. And it's not so hard. If we wanted to, maybe we can go a little further. Let's see what we can do before the computer tells us we can't go any further. Let's try a 2 millimeter fillet. Oh, that's even better. Yeah, let's stick with that. So now we have our graphic. Let's add our text. What my wife wants it to say, again, is think celestial. So we'll put think in capitalized text, and then below it we'll put celestial in a larger font, but a cursive font. And that's something we're probably going to have to search for and figure out. But if we select our sign and go more, add text. So I happen to have a keyboard connected to my iPad. Of course, caps lock doesn't work, so I'll just have to hold down Shift. Think. And we want it bigger than that, so let's go like 30 millimeters. Let's try that. Yeah, I think that'll work. And then we'll use this down arrow here to kind of pull it down to about there. And we're gonna tap done. Now we're gonna do the same thing and add celestial. So we're gonna tap more, more. Oh, we need to have our sign selected first. So we're gonna select our sign, more, accidentally double tapped. So have the sign selected, more, add text, and now we're gonna type celestial. And my wife wants this a little bit bigger, so let's go 40. And we might go even bigger than that, but let's find our actual font first. Let's try the Snell round hand. Now, if I were doing this on my PC, which I do have this on my PC, I could probably use more fonts that are on my PC. Let's try this. We got regular, bold, black, which I guess is just more bold. Let's try a bold. And let's make it bigger. Let's go 50.
Now we have to remember that we're going to be extruding this upwards as well. So let's go 60. We want to give ourselves plenty of real estate to grab and extrude upwards, and also to print, because this is going to be printed on an FDM printer. And I think that's probably going to be as big as we want it. I think going any bigger than that will just be too much. So we're going to continue. And once again, we're going to drag this down about right there. Done. So what that's done is it's added our text. Now we can extrude our text upward. Same thing like we did with our sun up here. So we're just gonna select our spaces, not lines. And we're gonna go 5 millimeters. Then we'll do the same thing with celestial. And we're gonna have to get kind of meticulous here because we've got spaces like this, not the lines. Might have to zoom in pretty far to select them. And we want to, I'm actually, this space here, I'm actually not going to select. So now that we have these spaces here that we're going to extrude upwards, we're going to select our arrow. We're going to go up 5 millimeters. There. So we have our sign. And what I want to do on top of this is I want to design a border that's going to go around, because I have this amylin wood, walnut wood filament that I think would look nice as a border. But what we're going to need to do is print that separately, because the rest of this we're going to print using the AMS of the X1C, which will automatically change the color of the filament for us as we print. But the wood filament, being an abrasive filament, can't go through the AMS, so it'll have to be those will have to be a single color print that we just glue onto the sides. I mean, we're going to be gluing things together anyways, because we're going to have to print this sign in pieces, because the whole thing won't fit on one print bed. So let's do that. I'm going to go from here. I'm going to select this point here and go out another centimeter, if it'll let me. Here. There we go. Whoop, no, that's not what I wanted. I want to go straight out. So we're going to go out 1 centimeter. The reason I'm doing it this way is because I want these top pieces to conform directly to this top of the sun. I'm actually going to not have that wooden border around the top of the sun. So we're going to have it come out whoop, 1 centimeter, yep. And so this way I can go all the way to there. Let's see what happens if we extrude this up. We're going to go up 15 millimeters, so 1.5 centimeters, so that it comes up a little ways around the rest of the sign. And then we're going to move this out. There, so we have that piece. We're gonna do the same thing over here. We're going to just drop our pencil and draw out 10 millimeters, go up 10 millimeters, and then go back in towards our sign, straight, extrude this up, whoops, 15 millimeters or 1.5 centimeters. We're going to double tap our part to select the whole thing and drag it out. Now, actually, what we could do is just leave it in, and then we can do the same kind of thing down here. And this will kind of make things easy. And then we already have this shape here. And here, let's do that better. $10 millimeters there. Extrude up 15 millimeters. Let's move this back into here. And that's not lining up perfectly because we weren't really perfect when we pulled it out. There we go. There we go. So that's our sign. And since we made these all separate pieces, these border pieces, separate, we'll print them separate as well. When we export this, it'll export it all into parts. And then we can print them all separately, except for the sign itself, which will be cut up and printed in separate pieces as well. But that's it. Let's get it printed. So I've moved over to Shapr3D here on my PC because this is where I'm going to be doing my slicing and everything. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to, for my reference here, I'm going to pull these edge pieces away from the rest of the sign. Just a little ways, just so I can see it when I pull it into the slicer and I can move things around from there. So there we go. Now we're going to export this. And we'll just do STL, that's fine. Now we're going to pull it into Bambu Studio. And obviously it is way too big for the print bed. And we need to split up the pieces. So we'll right click and we'll split into objects. Yeah, there we go. So now each piece is a separate object. And the beautiful thing about Bambu Studios, you can actually have multiple beds. So we can move all of these pieces over to a bed. Obviously, this is another one that's going to need to get cut.
then we'll make multiple beds for each piece. First things first, let's change the color for this, just so we can better see what we're dealing with. Let's move that out. So what I think we'll do is we will cut it first, and then, or I mean, we'll color it first, and then we'll cut it. So now let's cut this up. We're going to cut it up into 4 sections, and we'll have a separate section for, or a separate plate for each section. So we're going to choose our sign. We're going to go up here to cut. And no, we don't want to cut horizontally. We want to cut vertically. Oh, here we go, up here. So if we just rotate 90 degrees on the Y, so that will cut it there. One thing I want to do is also add the pegs between the pieces, the pegs and the holes. So we're going to add connectors, plug, square, that's all fine. And then let's see, we'll probably want to go like 4.9 on the size. I've never actually used this tool before in Bambu Studio, so hopefully this will give us what we want. And so then we will put our pegs here on. We're going to want to do 4 sets of pegs, so we'll do like, because we're going to also cut it this way, lengthwise. So we'll do it like this-ish. There we go. So confirm our connectors. And then we'll perform the cut. And you know what it did? It killed our coloring. Dang it. So we'll just have to recolor things. It's no big deal. And we're going to have to use a different tool to color things as well, because we've got these sides here that we want to keep white. But I'll show you that in a moment. So let's go ahead and cut this one now. So we're going to cut, and we're going to rotate this 90 degrees, and then we're going to rotate the Z 90 degrees, and we're going to cut it lengthwise like that. And this is why we did 4 pegs, 2 pegs for each section. And this is actually going to work out in our favor, because what's going to happen is when it does the color change on each of these pieces, it'll only have to do 1 color change. 1 color change from white to black on this piece, 1 color change from white to yellow on this piece, and the same thing with the other side as well. So we're going to want to add our connectors, same way here. We'll do 1 there and 1 there. That should work. Confirm, perform the cut. Okay, let's move this over here. Let's move this down to here. So now we're getting a separate plate for each of our pieces. And then we'll do the same thing we'll cut this here. On the Y, 90 on the Z, and we're going to add connectors. Do it like this. Confirm. And perform the cut. There we go. So let's make a plate for that. Let's make another plate for that. And when we print these pieces that have the pegs, obviously we're going to want to give them some support. So we'll do that momentarily. Let's go ahead and cut this piece too, since we got it on its own plate. Do it like this, and might as well give it some connectors too. Let's give it 2 connectors as well. Just helps to line things up perfectly. So I'll do one like that. And it doesn't matter where they go, really. Perform the cut. There. And now we can arrange these on the bed in such a way that they will print properly. In fact, if we just go arrange like that, and there you go. So now we have everything done. Let's come back in here and let's paint. So we can't just paint this yellow because it's going to leave this side white. What we need to do now is use the height range tool. Go yellow. And this will allow us to go like this. So we printed that line there. And now we can just do our fill. I'm going to slide this all the way up so that I can just select this whole thing yellow. We'll want to do the same thing over here. And this is obviously going to take some time to print, but we can at least get it all done this way and then save our file. There we go. Now we're going to do a similar thing with our text pieces. Black. Let's get a little closer so we can see what we're doing. The reason I slid this all the way up is so that it would ignore these hard edges and just print the whole paint the whole thing black without me having to go around to all the sides and paint them. So now we're going to paint this one and do it the same way. There. I think that's probably going to be the best we can do. And then this is going to get a little bit dicey, but we probably should have cut that a different way, but we'll see how it goes. But there, we have all of our pieces. let's get the first one printing. So we'll take this one, and I actually have two machines, two Bambu X1-Carbons. So one's called Alpha, one's called Bravo. We're going to print this one on Alpha. And layer height, we're going to go, first of all, we're going to go with a textured PEI sheet. Layer height, I'm thinking we're going to go with 0.28 millimeters. Infill, I like to use, let's go to infill here. I like to use, for bigger prints, I like to use adaptive cubic, and you'll see why maybe here in just a minute. We are going to want support on this piece, so we'll do enable support. I like to use tree support. With such small pieces, it might not make a difference, but we'll see what it does. Flushing volumes, I just do an auto calc with a multiplier of 1.3. That's always given me the best result, but at the same time it wants to flush more than 800 on some of these colors. Now granted, these colors aren't going to be used, but it does waste a little bit more, but it also gives you a better result because you're not getting any bleed from one color to the next. And I like, when I do multiple colors, I like to do a prime tower, just because that primes the nozzle between the color changes before it starts going back to the print. So that should do it. I'm going to dumb down the speed as well on the outer wall. A faster speed will give you more of a dull finish. I'd like to be a little shiny as the filament should be allowed to make it. So let's go ahead and slice this. This is going to take a couple hours to do, but let's get it printing. Oh, before I print, let me show you the infill here. So this is what the adaptive cubic does. It actually adapts the infill to use less filament. So even though it's 15%, still set to 15% here on our sparse infill density, it's going to use less than what I would usually use, which is the gyroid. I just like to use this for bigger prints. So let's print it. So here we have it, a sign that we designed in Shapr3D. I spared you the long boringness of watching me glue it all together, just the border, gluing on the borders and gluing the individual pieces together. And it turned out great. Now, if I were to do this again, and let's face it, I'm gonna do it again, there are some things that I would do differently. For starters, I showed you that I used the adaptive cubic infill, and you might not be able to see it on camera, but what it does is it allows us to see through the surface of the print and into the infill. The infill blocks some light shining through it, but not all light shining through it, and it makes it look a little bit cheesy. So I would go back to using the gyroid infill. Second, on the pegs between the pieces, I would increase the tolerance from 0.1 to maybe 0.2 or higher. I really am just kind of playing with that for the first time in Bambu Studio. When I went to glue these 4 pieces together, the hole tolerance was a little bit tight. I ended up having to file down the connectors just to fit them in the holes. But other than that, I think this turned out pretty well. There is obviously room for refinement, and we'll do that. But that's it for this video. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. And until next time, go out there, fire up those 3D printers, and make something awesome. While you're watching this end screen, I'd like to leave you with this random thought. If I put on a sweater and start sweating, do I then become the sweater?